Okay, number 5 is time travel and time slips. Yes, the manipulation of the time-space continuum is in the Bible. The first citation would be Baruch 4, found in the Septuagint and the Vulgate Bible, and it talks about the prophet Jeremiah sending the boy Abimelech out to get figs for he and the men he was meeting with. And then the boy goes out and he hears some strange noise and the wind kicks up, and then he wakes up after a time. He saw it was late, so he ran back to the city, and he was asking, he saw strangers and soldiers. He asked where Jeremiah was, and the people there told him that that was 62 years ago, a time slip. He was still a boy. The second citation is Ecclesiastes 1, 9 through 11, and it just says, that which has been is that which will be, and that which has been done is that which will be done. So there is nothing new under the sun. Already it has existed for ages which were before us, although there is no remembrance of the earlier things, and also of the later things which will occur in the future. The third citation is Ephesians 5, 15 through 16. It says, see that you walk circumspectly, redeeming the time, because the days are evil. So we need to redeem the days. We're in a matrix. We're living it again. The next one is when the Old Testament prophet Elijah was taken up in a whirlwind to another dimension, heaven. That was about 850 BC. And then he shows up almost 1,000 years later, more like 900 years later, on the Mount of Transfiguration, talking to Jesus. Those verses are 2 Kings 2, 11 through 12. That's when he disappears. And then Mark 9, 1 through 4 is when he reappears. The last citation I'll give for this is when Philip disappears and shows up instantly in another city. That is Acts 8, 39 through 40. When they came up out of the water, the Spirit of the Lord snatched Philip away, and the eunuchs no longer saw him, but went on his way rejoicing. But Philip found himself at Azotus, another city. So there you go. Number 4 is aliens. The Bible's really, really clear that there are interdimensional humanoid hybrids. It says in Genesis 6, now it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God, the angels, the fallen angels, saw the daughters of men that they were beautiful, and they took for themselves wives of all whom they chose. There were giants on the earth in those days, and also afterwards, when the sons of God came in to the daughters of men, and they bore children to them, hybrids from these interdimensionals and humans. And those were the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown, the men that we see in mythologies, what we call mythologies, but they are real. There are interdimensional humanoid hybrids. We see it in everything from the rock art of the Aborigines, Native American art, Roman, ancient Egyptian, Renaissance, all of them showing the progression of this breakaway civilization, a breakaway civilizations, many different races of aliens. And we even see today, why do you think the ancient Egyptians have the serpent? Their deity is the serpent, just like the Bible says with Adam and Eve. And today, with the genetic contamination, that original sin in the human gene pool, we see that manifesting as marfan syndrome, with the extra long fingers and long arms, and you know, those attributes that we see in these alien races. And we see them today in the human gene pool as well. And just like Genesis 6 says, one of the races that was thrown from this union of hybrids is giants. So that will be our next section. That is number 3, giants, real, literal giants. I know, we've all sort of chalked up the David and Goliath story to a fairy tale, sort of like Jack and the Beanstalk, but nothing could be further from the truth. There's so much archaeological evidence that these giant races recorded in the Bible are literal. Here's just a couple verses. I'm going to sprinkle them throughout. You can read them on your own. You can pause it if you need to. Numbers 13, 31 through 33, Deuteronomy 2, 20 through 22, and 1 Chronicles 28. 20 and then 8. And of course, we all know Genesis 6 is kind of the popular one. Now lately, Timothy Alborino, he's done some excellent research on this subject. He went to Sardinia, Italy, and he found that all of the locals talked about these giant human bones. They were buried everywhere. They would find them in their yards when they planted gardens or when they were building buildings or whatever. And the consistent story is that they were told to contact the Vatican. And the Vatican would come and retrieve the bones, or they would even send excavating equipment if there were large burial grounds, and they would cover it up with mounds of dirt, and they would, build walls around it, pave around it. If they couldn't retrieve them all, they actively tried to cover them up. And we see the same exact things in the Americas. With the Smithsonian, there were so many of the miners during the 1800s, early 1900s, that recovered these giants, a lot of time red-haired giants, and they'd find them in caves and caverns and catacombs when they were mining, and they would turn them over to the authorities, and they would, once the Smithsonian got a hold of them, they could never find them anymore. Family members have tried to trace them. They can't get any information. So they've been secreting the evidence of these giant humans, giant humanoids. They've been secreting all this away somewhere in a vault. The Vatican, just like they, during the Crusades, they took all the records from these Native Americans and the Mayans, and everywhere they went, and they burned them or they hauled them off to their little archives, and have kept this version of world history from us. And so I don't know why people have such a hard time believing in humanoid giants when we see dinosaur bones. We see that we can accept the fact that giant reptiles pretty much dominated the earth at one time, but we have this problem for some reason with the giant humanoids. But it's true. It's all true. Yeah, and before the invention of the internet and all of this social media, it was really easy for the ruling class, the powers that be, to control our paradigm, tell us what to believe, and spoon feed us information. Take like Stonehenge, for example. It's supposed to be such a mystery, but the records left by the Britons say that it was called the Giants' Dance, because these giants, these titans, that was their altar. They sacrificed animals and people on it to their ancestral god, and we see that in every culture on planet Earth, these records of their ancestral gods that we talked about earlier, the fallen interdimensionals that mated with humans. And archaeologists found a trench of bones all around Stonehenge, so it's confirmed with archaeological finds. And the records from that region say that there was a 12-foot giant called Gog Magog that resided in Britain after the fall of Troy. And that completely supports the biblical account of this family line. The Bible actually names them, that family, that tribe, Gog and Magog. The verses are Ezekiel 38, 2 and 3, and Genesis 10, 2. Also Revelation 20, verses 7 and 8. Now that's something that talks about this remnant tribe of giants will be back in the end times to be in players, which ties back into this UFO thing we're talking about, these hybrid races, the remnants of these hybrid races that have gone underground and off planet and things like that. Tons of UFO encounters where the witnesses report giants. They say that giants, not little green men, giants. Two examples are in January of 1996, Herzl Constantini, the chief of security, witnessed an alien craft in his field. He reported a humanoid to be approximately 11 feet tall and 5 feet wide, weighing probably 2 tons. The footprints were pressed into the earth up to 14 inches deep. Another one in Russia, in September of 1989, over 20 unrelated witnesses report that 3 9-foot-tall giants stepped out of a vehicle that landed in a park in clear view. There were police chiefs, a metal worker, a janitor, school children, lots and lots of witnesses. So these things are true. We see it in the human gene pool now. We call it acromegaly. And we see it still pops up in the human gene pool. And this is all just part of that same genetic contamination, that original sin that the Bible talks about, that has been passed down through all the generations of humanity. It's this contamination of the human gene pool, which leads us right into number 2, which is 6 fingers and 6 toes. Yep, the Bible explains it. It explains where this polydactyl genetic disorder comes from. The verses, I'll just put them on the screen. You can pause it and read it if you want. Just a couple of them are 1 Chronicles 26. That Chronicles is what it sounds like. It's the chronology of the ethnicities, and you know, there are books of the Bible that's all they are. The ones we skip over that are so-and-so begot so-and-so, begot so-and-so, begot so-and-so. It's the record of all the genealogies, the ethnicities as they spread out over the globe. You guys should really read this book. It's fascinating. Another verse is 2 Samuel 21:20. And again, we see polydactyl is a trait that pops up in the human gene pool even today. Some people say Oprah has 6 toes, Halle Berry, Michelle Obama, things like that. You can see all that kind of stuff online. I don't know these people personally, so I can't attest to whether that's true or not, but certainly there are lots and lots of humans. The picture, Alfonseco, he has 6 fingers. I even have people, you know, 2nd, 3rd, 4th cousins in my family line that have had the 6 fingers, or, you know, different genetic traits like that from the Gentile bloodlines. So that's really about it for this one. It's a short one, and now we go into number 1. Yep, you guessed it, it's Bigfoot. Bigfoot is in the Bible. They are recorded as being the descendants of Esau, the tribes of Edom. The verses for that are Genesis 25:23 through 24. That talks about the birth of Esau and how he was completely covered in red hair. Genesis 27:11, that's Jacob asking his mother Rebekah, "Why is my brother a hairy man and I'm a smooth-skinned man?" Genesis 27:16 is where Jacob was trying to deceive his father into thinking he's Esau to get the blessing, and his mother Rebekah helped him, and she covered his arms and the back of his neck, everywhere that his blind father, his father was old and blind, everywhere that his father would touch him, in goat hair, in goat skin, so that when his father touched him he would think he was a hair-covered man. And these tribes throughout ancient history were always at war. It says that they were driven off the face of from the face of the earth and went underground to live in the catacombs and the underground cities. It says that they were forced into the mountain range. We hear again and again the mountains of Esau, the mountains of Esau. So it's no coincidence that almost all of the names that the Native Americans have for Bigfoot, the Sasquatch, all these different names are areas all along the mountain ranges of America. And of course, you know, we have the Yowie in Australia, and we have the abominable snowman in Russia. So these genetic abominations are recorded in the Bible, and it says that most of these tribes were wiped out through war and through the floods and things like that. But there are still remnants, and we still see them today. People see them today coming to the surface and coming out there. The Bible records them as being great hunters and game eaters and things of that nature, and so do all of the accounts of the Native Americans and such. So that's the big surprise, that Bigfoot is explained in the Bible, and we see that this genetic contamination, once again, the Bible is proven by not only archaeological finds, but by all of the genetic evidence. We do see this trait appearing in the human race still today, popping up in the human gene pool. Now we call the genetic disorder hypertrichosis. And in the older days, you would see people these people would be in the circuses and things like that. Nowadays, you still see them. They are on the internet, on the health sites and things like that. You can see pictures of this disorder. But it does. This comes from the bloodline of Esau and the tribes of Edom. So that's it. I guess what I'm trying to say, the bottom line is that there are only mysteries, there are only anomalies because we live in a false worldview. Because the people in the know have created this fake revisionist history, this paradigm that we live in. But the truth is that there aren't any mysteries, folks. There's only people who can't handle the truth. This Bible is a fascinating book, and it has the answers.